Welcome, everybody. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker this evening, Suzanne Knight. Suzanne is Vice President of Transformation Services at Walmart Canada. She leads a dynamic team that provides transformation services, enterprise-wide, including change management, business process re-engineering, automation, and AI. Suzanne is a certified facilitator and has been a speaker for many organizations, including the Schulich School of Business, Future Leaders of Ontario, and more. Suzanne volunteers as a Sick Kids Innovator and serves on the Executive Council for Walmart Canada's Women in Retail program. This year, Suzanne was selected for the Peaks Emerging Under 40 Leaders. She's done this and more while with her husband, raising 3 kids under the age of 7. As an active, engaged member of Verity over the last 5 years, we're so pleased that you are here tonight, Suzanne, to give us the inside scoop on Unleash Agility, Transform for a Dynamic World. Over to you, Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. It's such a pleasure to be here and speak to so many old and new friends. It's been a pleasure being a member of Verity and this amazing organization of strong women. And I will say, out of my list of accomplishments, parenting 3 very spirited kids, age 7 and under, is the one of which I am most proud and that has challenged me the most. So I'm here to speak to you tonight about business agility. As you heard from Cecilia, I lead transformation in my work. I've done it as a consultant and as a business executive in the areas of consumer goods and retail. And it's also something that I apply to my life because there's a lot of chaos in the world. There's a lot of chaos in our lives. And anything that can give structure and new ways of thinking and working to help manage that, I think is a good thing. So that's where I do a lot of the applicability of my work to my life. So let's start with something a little fun. We'll start with a story. And this story is about having a dinner party. So we're having a dinner party, and this dinner party is happening in 4 hours. We are at home, and the kids are at the grandparents' house, and we have to cook, we have to clean, we have to get the house ready. And by the way, we're wearing the same pajamas that we woke up in. So we have a lot of work to do to make this a wonderful event. And we have 8 guests coming for context. So before they come, my husband goes outside to the front of the house so he can mow the lawn. And I start inside going to the kitchen. I look in the kitchen and there are dishes all over the counter. And I think, okay, I'm gonna start by cleaning off this counter. So I open the dishwasher to put my dishes in, and I realize they're clean dishes. So I start to unload. This was my first of the unexpected activities. I hear the lawnmower going in the front. So I unload the dishes, load in the new ones, and I think, oh, there's still some room. So I head upstairs because I have some water glasses. So I go to collect those water glasses from upstairs so I can bring them down and get a full load. But once I'm upstairs, I see some clothes on the floor. So I grab the clothes, I start to do a load of laundry, and I think, well, I'm doing laundry anyway, so I might as well get the towels and the bath mats and the full set of laundry. So I go, I fill the washing machine, and I turn it on. I then head back downstairs, except I forgot the water glasses. So I head back up, grab the water glasses, bring them back downstairs, and I see my husband at the dishwasher. He's unloading it. Why is he doing this? I've just loaded it with all of my dirty dishes. Well, he says, oh, I put in a load this morning. I thought they would be clean. I don't know why they're so dirty. So I say in a very frustrated voice, please get out of my kitchen, go do something productive, leave me in my space. I have a lot of work to do. So he goes past me upstairs and I finish reloading the dishwasher. At this point, it's been probably about 45 minutes and all I've gotten done is loading a dishwasher. So I get that in. I'm looking around and I see the dining room. The dining room does not look good. It has some paper, it has some kids' toys, and I think, okay, the kitchen is not that great. There aren't dishes on the counter, but I have a lot of work to do before my guests come. So I head into the dining room because it's gonna make me feel much better if I have this beautiful, inviting space for our dinner. So I start cleaning the dining room. I start getting ready to set the table. I set it with the fanciest, most luxurious table you can imagine because that's what's gonna make me feel better. So I put a tablecloth, I put my runner, I put my placemats, my chargers, a full, very formal set of dishes, all the cutlery, all the various sets of cutlery. I make beautiful napkins, flowers, animals, all the arrangements, and I make a nice centerpiece. So the table now is fit for royalty. Like, this is a very fancy table. I look back and I feel amazing. I go back to the kitchen. Okay, so I've spent 2 hours in total and I've managed to load the dishwasher, get in a load of laundry, and set the dining room table. I have 2 hours until my guests come and I've not started cooking. So I decide that now it's time. No more messing around. I have to make this meal. I go into the fridge, I get my roast, because I'm, by the way, making a full roast beef. So I get the roast out, I get my carrots out, my onions out. I start cutting the onions, browning the beef, browning the onions. I start peeling carrots. The onions are burning, by the way, because I didn't prep my ingredients. I then cut up the carrots, get them in. I go to the fridge to get my celery and my herbs. I don't have any. I don't have potatoes. I don't have any stock. So my roast is going to be a little sad at this rate. So I leave what I'm doing, turn off the stovetop, stop everything. The kitchen, by the way, looks like a nightmare again. And I head to the grocery store. I yell to my husband on the way out, heading to get groceries. I don't know where he is or what he's doing, but I yell it anyway and I go out. So I get my groceries and I am on my way back. I am really panicked at this point. Like, I have, you know, an hour and a half or less before this party started, before my guests show up. And I frantically throw ingredients into a pot. Like, this is gonna now be a one pan, one pot meal, and nothing's brown except for the onions that are black, and I get it in the oven. So it's in the oven, it's cooking, the kitchen is a mess, and I think, okay, what's next? What's next? I have maybe an hour at this point. I think living room. Living room is important because that's where people are going to come. So I go to the living room and I start cleaning. But it is way worse than I anticipated. There are toys all over the floor. So I'm cleaning the living room in this panic, and I bumped into the shelf. I drop a vase. It breaks all over the floor. I did not need this tonight because I'm already so stressed and so panicked, and now there's glass all over my floor. So I'm on my hands and knees cleaning up the glass when my husband comes down the stairs looking amazing. He's had his shower, he's gotten dressed for the party. I am so mad at this situation, looking at him look so polished when I'm meanwhile still in my pajamas, on my hands and knees, covered in all the food I was cooking with, cleaning up this glass. So he tells me that he's going out to mow the back lawn. I don't even respond at this point. I'm thinking, great, bye. Like, I can't deal with this right now. So I am cleaning, finishing, I hope, getting closer to finishing cleaning, although there's still mess in that room, in the kitchen, in the front entrance. But I look, I have 15 minutes before the guests are coming. Like, this is a disaster, but maybe I can still make it work. When all of a sudden, the doorbell. Why do guests come early? So this, at this point, is like terrible. And I'm thinking, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm panicked, like the blood has drained from my face. I am still in pajamas. And I'm thinking, what do I do? What do I do? While the doorbell continues to ring and they're knocking. And so, like a normal person, I would answer the door, right? But I am not a normal person. I run upstairs, I whip off my pajamas, I'm frantically looking for something decent to wear, and meanwhile, these people are waiting outside wondering if the party's even happening. But I can't think about that. I get dressed, I go back to the front entrance, I see my guests opening the door, and, you know, I open pretending to be totally normal. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome to my house. they're looking already confused and stressed. And they say, oh, did we get the day right? I said, oh, yeah. Sorry, the food was just bubbling so beautifully in the oven. I must not have heard you over the roast. So they come in, we go to the living room, they sit down. We're having small talk, but I'm cleaning as they're there because it's still a mess. I'm feeling really stressed out. My husband walks in from the back. He's in the best mood. Hey, how are you doing? He's making the small talk while I'm panicking. And it's basically the disaster of a night you would expect, because my guests are feeling stressed out because they see the stress emanating, radiating off of me. And in addition to that, it only gets worse when we go to the dining room because they're feeling anxious and intimidated by the excessive amount of cutlery I have set out. And beyond that, when I get the roast out of the oven, it is, you can guess, completely raw. But I don't have time to deal with it at that point. All I can really do is serve it and pretend it's normal. So it is one of those evenings that is a disaster. And here's the thing, thinking about this evening. Now, this is a mostly fictitious scenario, mostly, but I'll tell you that, like, there have been times in my life and maybe in your life where you felt that panic, like things are not going well. And you think they're going well for other people, right? But like, you're sitting there on the couch after the party thinking, how do other people do it? Like, I go to dinner parties, everything's very well organized, but like, were they not panicking? Why were they able to get everything done? Because in this story, I was working really hard for 4 hours. And what you didn't necessarily notice is my husband was working really hard for 4 hours because he was mowing lawns. He had done the dishes that morning. He had gotten himself ready. He was upstairs unloading the laundry that I'd put in and folding and putting it away. So we're both doing our parts. This isn't a situation of one person doing the work and the other sitting. Like, we were both doing things. But we weren't doing the things that would really make a difference in this party situation for our guests. And that's the part that we can think about new ways to approach problems and tackle situations, whether it's our personal life or our professional life. There are different ways to tackle them. And this is where it goes. There's a duck, there's a swan, whatever the animal is. You see it glide so gracefully across the water, and you don't see the little feet frantically kicking underneath, because that's the part that we assume is only us frantically kicking, not everyone else around us, but we all have those moments. So this is where I would love tonight to share some of these tactics in business agility and lean and ways to be more productive. But it starts with learning. So let's do a retrospective analysis. Let's talk about first what went right. So what went right in the party was I got the dining room done, I got groceries, I made a meal, I got it on the table. So some things happened that were good. My husband was dressed. The outside of the house looked really good. So we had some successes. And then we go to what went wrong. So we lacked priorities and objectives. So if you think about this story, when did I mention our guests? Very little, really. Up front, I talked about what I cared about, having this incredibly fancy dining area, but it made my guests nervous. I didn't talk about my guests with whether they cared about the environment, having fun, how important food was relative to the other pieces of the activity. Did they really care if my house was clean? Well, I don't know. I didn't even think about them. I was just thinking about me and what I wanted for this party. So that's the first issue. I was also really unclear around what the relative priorities were of the things I was doing, partly because I didn't think about the guests. And I tackled some items that were totally unnecessary for the purpose of the party with a time crunch. So that could be going up for water glasses, it could be laundry, that kind of thing. And this is about sizing and defining done as well. If you are clear on what needs to be done, you can do the math on how long each activity will take, and doing that math will let you know if it's even feasible to begin with. But that gives you the chance to recalibrate, because if you've said that you have 6 hours worth of work and only 4 hours to do it, don't get started and try and hope you can fit it all in. Like, it won't work. You need to resize up front and take things off the list. And you also can't add things as you're going if that doesn't work in the math. And then definition of done. What is good enough? Up front, you can actually say, what is a good enough meal? What is a good enough dining room? What's a good enough living room? And then you balance those factors to say, this is as much as I will do. You don't do more because you don't have time and capacity to do more. I see some of our entrepreneurs in the audience nodding, you know. So next, unclear roles and responsibilities. So my husband and I were both working, as I mentioned, but we didn't know what each other were working on. And because we didn't know, we were frustrated with each other because he was unloading the dishwasher trying to be helpful. He didn't know the work I had already done to load it. So he was frustrated that I didn't tell him what I was doing. I was frustrated that he was redoing my work, making it worse. And at the end of the day, when he was upstairs, I was really mad about it because I just assumed he spent the last hour getting dressed. But he was unloading the washer into the dryer and folding clothes and doing this work that I had started that had to get done. I just didn't know it. We also had a not great tone of communication. So the thing is that there were moments where he was there that I could have asked for help. When I was on my hands and knees cleaning up glass and he was walking by, I could have said, I need help. He could have offered to help me, but neither of that happened because the tone of communication was so broken from our earlier interaction. So that didn't happen. And then finally, we didn't sync up or recalibrate. So through this evening, we could have actually said that every hour or so we would check in on how we're doing and what we're doing and then adjust. But we didn't plan for that, so we had very little interaction through that period. All of these are things that we could do better. And in a retro, you talk about what worked, what didn't work, and then some actions you can take. So now I would love to talk about some foundations of Agile, Lean, and some definitions, because ultimately those definitions, they're not going to make or break you, but I think that they will be useful where if you hear about any of these terms, whether it's on TV or in conversations or in other forums, I want you to at least be able to put them in context and be able to absorb in that conversation what they're about. And then we'll talk about the applicability together tonight. Okay, so the first one is Agile. So Agile was developed in the early 2000s for software development and project management. It was a response to very burdensome, paperful project processes that really took away from the customer and the delivery of work. It was burdensome. And you can even think today about project management, formal processes with gating and the number of steps and levels you have to do that take you into documentation and away from the actual delivery. That was why Agile was originally formed. So there was a manifesto created and it had 4 points, and I'll give you the very quick and dirty of each of those. So first, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. The team doing the work knows the work best. Listen and value the team because they are better for you and the delivery of work and understanding what needs to be done than being overburdensome with processes and paperwork and tools. The next, working software over comprehensive documentation. This is the idea of coming quick to value and creating something that has an output that your customer can respond to. So the more time you spend delivering and the less time you spend on documentation, the faster you are creating value that is usable out in the world. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. You have many options when your customer is sitting across the table. One of them is to work together to come to the best understanding of the requirements and the definition of what good looks like, and then to iterate together with your customer over a period of time to create value. The other option is to focus on negotiation, nailing down the requirements and documenting them so that you are only required to deliver those prescribed requirements. The thing is that once you start working and delivering, you learn, and you learn about what's needed and what works and what doesn't. So I'm not advocating to avoid risk or to anticipate issues, but if you have some flexibility to build what will be of value, there is benefit both to you as the person delivering and to your customer. And then finally, responding to change over following a plan. That ties into the last point. Be ready. The environment could change. A lot of initiatives are long-standing. They'll take a while to actually move through. So how do you manage the change? You have to be ready to it and have your approach of what needs to be done, but don't be prescriptive over the value that you can create. Be open to the value that change can bring. So the next point is lean. So lean was developed in the mid-1900s. You might think of the Toyota manufacturing example. And this point is all about process improvement, continuous experimentation, and creating maximum value with limited resources and having the most efficient, effective way of working. So you can see this is a word cloud that was created by a lean team, and you can see what they think about when they're looking at the elements of how they work and where their heads are at. And you can see it's about implementing reliable, superior workers. It's about the people. And what's interesting is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. You're taking out the noise, you're taking out the mess, the complexity, and delivering in the most seamless way possible to create maximum value. But it's an experimentation and process and a continued evolution, not a one-time try it and you've gotten it right. It's a process. So what's the difference? Agile is about iterative development. It's about the customer collaboration and working together to create that value. Lean is about waste reduction, process optimization, and overall efficiency. But here's the thing. You don't have to be prescriptive about any of these philosophies and processes. You can design what works best for you, because that's the whole point, right? Like, what's more important, being a big A agilist, being a lean process re-engineer, or is it about doing your work and living your life in the most effective way that feels the best, that feels the most seamless and easy, right? It's about the applicability, which is why I say, I explain the terms, get into a bit of jargon, but now we get into how to actually make it work. And one way is Scrum. So this is a work process. And rather than explain in technical terms what this is like, I'll tell you how I apply it in my work. But when you're thinking about Scrum, you can apply this in different ways, whether it's for your personal work or whether it's for a sports team that you're a part of, whether it is for your household. You can have Scrum with your partner and kids, with your friends, with your parents. It's okay. And you can also have it with a team of any sort, whether it's sports or work. So what I do is I set objectives at the beginning of the month. And this is, by the way, business agility, coming out of software development into regular ways of working for regular non-tech teams. So this is why it's also so applicable and where I've made adjustments to make it most useful. I set objectives and I set a theme. This is my chance to tell my team in a documented visual way what is important to our customers and what's important to our organization based on my knowledge as the leader of this team. I set out those pieces and I also do a theme. This is a unique element. My theme might be around customer experience, or it might be around employee experience. It could be mental health. It could be physical health. It could be collaboration. I choose a different theme every month, and it's based on what I see as the biggest priority in that specific time period. And so sometimes it's where I have a problem, like I'm seeing my direct reports not collaborate and connect, and so I want to make sure that this is top of mind for them. That's how I choose a theme. I then set out with the objectives, all those work buckets, and I work with my team to break those big objectives into smaller tasks. My team knows their work best, so I tell them what should be done. They figure out how to do it. And then they prioritize. I've prioritized my big bucket objectives, but in the how, in the nuances, they figure out what steps they're going to take to get these pieces done. This is a bit of a discussion, a negotiation. There's Q&A. I explain why each of these objectives are important. And this is where they have the chance to say, I don't understand, or I don't agree. And I say, please tell me more, because our objective as a team is to come to value. So it's the best thing for us as a team to have that psychological safety to be able to engage in the discussion and come to the best understanding at the end. We align. So we align in the moment, typically with a vote. And this session, just to give you context, it's a 2-hour session once a month at the beginning of the month. And I dedicate that time. We don't do anything else. We're not checking email. We aren't, distracted. This is like serious dedication for how we run the session. And then we align. We do a vote on our level of confidence. And then if we're relatively confident, we don't have to be 100%, but if we're at least 80% confident, we move forward. If we're less than 80, we go back to the drawing board and renegotiate. We talk again about why these things are happening and then fix them. Every week, we do a work sync. This is our chance to align, connect. My team gives me light updates. I say light updates because I don't need to go into the absolute detail where I trust them on the work. A lot of the discussion is around blockers and where they're running into trouble that I can solve for them. And so some initiatives might actually not be discussed in a week because if they're going well, if there's nothing really broken, and if there's not a major celebration, we skip them. We just move on. And I'll also say that these sync-ups are a chance for dependency management. That's the other piece that we tackle. So in the dependency management, that's where we talk about how the team can work together and collaborate as a horizontal unit to create that value. And then finally, after the syncs, which we do every week, we do a show and tell. This is a showcase or a chance for the team to show me and our key stakeholders the work. And when they show the work, they can get feedback. So this is where they would select what they've delivered that they are either most proud of or most concerned about and get that input so that for the next session, we can recalibrate and they can pick up with that insight to keep delivering. And then we do a retrospective just as we did today. And the retrospective, it's an ego-free zone. So we can talk about what didn't go well, even in the collaboration level. It's not just about the work. It is about points that I brought up, like communication, where we say, actually, this did not go as well as we thought. So how can we do better? And then those lessons are what we start off with the objectives in the next piece. There would be a team level objective about how we can work better and maybe a theme. So there are 4 more pieces of advice that I can share. I walked through a work process, but how can you bring it to life? There are 4 more elements. The first one, target minimum viable product. This ties into the definition of what good enough looks like or what done looks like. You don't need to have the fanciest table in the world, but maybe you do, but you should know. You should know what your minimum viable product is and align on it with the team and make sure everybody knows when you're done enough. And I'll give you an example here. There's a woman who worked for me and we aligned on something that she would deliver. I said, give me 3 slides, just 3 slides, and I want to have your understanding of the situation, why that's your understanding, and a recommendation. And she came back to me 2 weeks later with 60 slides. My bad, I should have paid closer to attention to having her not come back to me, but I didn't. And so 2 weeks later, she comes back with 60 slides. Exceptionally well researched. She had done interviews with a lot of the team. She had done a lot of analysis. She had done so much beautiful charting and visualization. I saw it. I wasn't happy. I was nice about it, but I said, what happened to the 3 slides I asked you for? And she was so eager and excited to hand over this book to me. And my thought was, I thought 3 slides would take like an afternoon to do your thinking, do your processing, put it on paper. But 2 weeks, that means that this piece of work she did wasted 9.5 days of my capacity on the team that I could have allocated to higher value activities. And so I explained this to her in the nicest way I could, not to crush her spirit, but to say, at the end of the day, we need to deliver value for our customers and for our stakeholders. And when I explain minimum viable product, it's for a reason. If I say I just want bullets in an email, don't give me a deck. If I say just catch me in the hallway or give me a quick call, don't write me a report. So I'm very clear on what I expect, and I expect my team to follow that because I will use their time in the best way. right? As long as I know where they're spending their time and they follow the direction that we sync up on. The next one is limiting work in progress. So picture this visualization. You have 10 things on the go. Those 10 things have different customers and stakeholders. So you know what it's like. You're gonna have meetings for each of those status updates. You're gonna have to onboard onto all of those, and you're gonna have to keep updating your stakeholders so that they know you're working on them, right? Think about how much time in a typical 40-hour week would go into just maintaining status quo on those 10 items. And if you think of the visual, you move them ahead a little bit, you move them ahead a little, how long is it actually going to take you to get any of them done? So this is the idea of work in progress being something that you actually don't want. Imagine as an alternative, swarming one thing with you and your whole team working together in tandem as quickly as possible to get it over the finish line. As soon as it's over the finish line, that one thing is delivering value. And your customers can start to see that value, and you can start to get feedback on that thing you just delivered. So this is of huge value when you're trying to actually build trust with your customers and stakeholders, because you've shown them that you can do something and get it over that line. The other thing with the delivery is it builds trust within your team, and it builds confidence, and it gives your people something to celebrate and feel proud about. And imagine if you can build on that momentum to then tackle the second thing on the list, and then the third, and then the fourth. You're continuing to create value. And that's where your team really starts to hum and work as one, building that performance culture. The next one is silos. Silos are a huge time waster because you can have duplication of effort without even knowing it. Think in a typical organization, how many people work on something that's a little bit the same, right? With not totally clear roles and responsibilities, it's very likely that you might have multiple groups delivering on something, and it's only once it's over the line that you realize, oh, I either could have had a big leg up knowing what you were doing, or just not touched this at all. Or if you had worked together, you could have gotten it done much better and faster. If you're able to create a cross-functional team with all the skill sets and capabilities that you need, imagine what you're actually able to do, because you don't have to wait for decisions from across the organization. All those decisions are right there for you, and you can get those decisions made to immediately deliver value on those points rather than waiting for approval for somebody outside the project team. Finally, persistent teams. There is a lot of time spent onboarding that you could eliminate if your team actually works together long term. The thing is that teams can work on domains. They don't have to work on projects or little things. So pretend that it's a waste reduction project, okay? The team can do the waste reduction project and then go to something else like, I don't know, another operational issue. But they then have to figure out with different people how to work together, how to collaborate, and learn a whole new area. But what if they're working on waste reduction, they start with paper waste reduction, then the same people work on electricity waste reduction, and then water waste reduction, and then time waste reduction. But it's the same people who get into that pattern and hum of waste reduction. Imagine the collaboration and passion they can build for that domain that they absolutely own, and how much they can learn from each other if it's a cross-functional group. There's a lot of potential. And research suggests that persistence teams are the best performing teams. So this is something to consider. And because they can learn from each other cross-functionally, they can continue to build their career as experts of their domain, innovating in that space. So start small, think big. Don't get overwhelmed by as much as I just told you, because it's like a menu. You can choose the pieces that resonate and try one or a couple of things at the time. And then if they work, double down and continue to experiment with those things. Once you're comfortable, add in one more. Don't think you need to start every element of Scrum and every element of these additional enablers. You'll just make yourself more stressed out. This was a journey. My current work team, we're at something like iteration 20 at this point, with the same group of people working on enterprise transformation. And every month we get better at our practice. And in my past life, it was the same. We were never amazing from the start. In fact, our few iterations at the beginning tend to be a little bit difficult and stressful and feel like a burdensome activity. But once we get going, that's when we're crystal clear on what needs to get delivered, and we're delivering quickly. And our customers are seeing and appreciating the value that we provide. So let's try again. We're having another dinner party. I see a lot of nervous faces. The difference is this time we are going to try with the principles of business agility in mind. So if you think about the first steps of our process, we want to think about our customer, the guests at our party. What is it that they really care about? Well, knowing my guests, these people really want to have fun. They want to come in and have a welcoming environment and feel like we appreciate having them in the home and have great conversation. Their next priority is good food. Everybody likes food. That's their next priority. Their last priority would be to have a clean house. And the house has to be a certain level of clean because people can't feel welcomed into a disaster zone. But, knowing what is important to my guests, my husband and I go to the kitchen and we start mapping out our objectives because we can sync up together to say, what are we cleaning? Let's make the list of all the areas of the house. What are we cooking? Well, we could make a roast beef. We have 4 hours. Or thinking about our guests, actually, they're not that into red meat. Maybe we should make fish. So we decide on fish as our meal, which is also faster to cook. So that makes a lot of sense. We also have to make a dessert, which we forgot in the first dinner party. Maybe we'll bake cake. And then we have to get ready. So this is getting the dining room ready, maybe putting some candles or music. And it's also about us getting dressed and ready so we look nice when the guests come. So we have our list of activities. Then we need to prioritize and we need to actually sync up on how we're going to work. So we decide that we're going to start with the cooking, which means that we start in the kitchen, which means that we have to first get the dishes off the counter. So we go into the kitchen and we say, because we're going to start cooking and we don't have that much time, maybe neither of us should go grocery shopping. Let's order in the groceries. So this is one way that we're fast-tracking our process that's not going to take away from the guest experience, but it's just going to take some stress away. So my husband starts unloading the dishwasher while I order our groceries for delivery, the fish and some herbs. I go to the fridge and I get the broccoli, I get some potatoes, and I start prepping those ingredients while my husband finishes unloading and then loading up the dishwasher. We know we have glasses upstairs. Doesn't matter, not our priority, because they are not going to help our guests have a wonderful dinner party. So we finish that piece. My husband joins me to peel the potatoes when he finishes with the dishwasher. We get as far as we can, but now we're waiting for the groceries to arrive. So we go back to our list. What's next most important? Well, it's the living room, because that's the first place that our guests are going to come when they arrive. The lawn needs to be done. Who cares? The guests are going to be there for 30 seconds. We skip over the whole lawn thing. It goes in the backlog. Backlog is like a to-do list. It is not active. It's not on our list for tonight. We go together to the living room and we start cleaning. It's worse than we expected. We have toys everywhere. At least we're working together, but this is taking a really long time. Of course, even though I'm not stressed at this point, I'm a bit clumsy. So I knock over the vase. The vase, cracks and breaks all over the floor. My husband starts cleaning up the vase and I say, you know what? This is taking longer than expected. We have to recalibrate. So I go through the list and I look at what we can take off or what we can change before the guests come. Right? So that we're not in that panicked situation at the end. So an easy one, I'm not baking a cake, I'll do ice cream. So we decide to do ice cream, we change that off the list, even though living room's taking longer, even though I broke a vase, whoops, we can still get through our evening okay without a major issue. So we finish cleaning together and then we do a sync up. So we did a mini sync up when the vase broke, but now it's time for us to really look at where we're at and recalibrate. So we check in. So we're actually not too bad for time. The living room is looking pretty good. The kitchen's a bit of a mess. And we haven't started actually cooking the fish or making mashed potatoes, and we haven't started in the dining room. We agree to go back to the kitchen now that the groceries arrived and get the food ready, because we can't have a dinner party without food. So we go back and we start cooking the fish and getting everything ready. Not cooking the fish, but I should say seasoning the fish, getting that piece ready so that when our guests are almost there, we can cook it and it will be nice. We boil the potatoes. It's a little bit of that prep work and finalizing getting ready. And while I'm prepping those up, my husband's emptying the dishwasher and reloading it, which is taking away some mess in that kitchen, right? So we're working together in the same place, limiting our work in progress, working as one, communicating throughout to get to the most effective process in our party. This is a very different way of thinking than we had in the first session. So now our food is basically ready. It's gonna take us 5 minutes, even when our guests arrive, so it's super fresh when they get there. So then we look, we recalibrate, we check our list. Next is dining room. We go together to the dining room and we have a very clear understanding of what good enough is, because we talked about our guests and having a very fancy dining room is not what they want. They want it to be welcoming and inviting, because we started with what the guests prioritize. So that's what we do. We get it to that level, we look at the clock, we have 25 minutes left. Not a ton of time, just enough time for us to go get dressed, ready, and come back. So if we have extra time, maybe we'll tidy up the entrance, maybe we'll make a fancier centerpiece, but that would come after, only once we have done every single required activity in our list. And only then would we go to the backlog and consider pulling out something from the to-do list to tackle. And that is how we ran our dinner party. So I will accept applause on our dinner party of not having the same disaster. I saw a lot of nervous faces there. So now we do our retrospective. What worked well? Well, we had really clear and realistic objectives based on what our customers prioritized, our guests. We had a structured process. We had regular work syncs. We had a documented visual view of what we were delivering. And my husband could have looked at the notepad. I could have looked at it, so we could continue to refer back. We also had clarity on what was a priority and active versus what was something on the to-do list that could be done the next day, like laundry. We had better communication and collaboration, and we were physically together for a lot of that time, so that if I had an issue like dropping a vase, he could clean it up. If I was making dirty dishes, he could clean them. And this just helped us stay in sync and continue to progress on basically one thing or one domain at a time. We adapted to the challenges with ease, and we also recalibrated. So we didn't just drop a vase, clean up the vase, and move on. We changed the plan. Instead of a cake, we do ice cream. Our guests probably would have liked a cake, but what's better to have that really stressed out environment where nothing feels good, which was the top priority for our guests, to have it feel good and welcoming when they came in, or to sacrifice a little bit on what we serve for dessert. We decided it was better to sacrifice what we serve. And finally, limited work in progress, as I mentioned. So our dinner party was very successful and we feel great, but change is a process, not an event. And this is what I would love to leave you with. Again, don't feel overwhelmed. When you're looking into your personal or professional life, take the 1 or 2 pieces that feel the best to you, that really resonate, that you actually think would make your life easier, not more difficult, and try those out. And as you continue to evolve like a beautiful butterfly, you'll continue trying and finding. And some things you do just might not work for you. And that's okay. Either make them better or eliminate them, because you don't have to be a formal big A agilist. You can just be somebody who tries out some practices of agility and tries out some practices around efficiency. And you'll do this in the way that will make your life and work better. So, thank you so much for your time tonight.